Hey guys, remember The Flash, Season 3, Episode 16, Into the Speed Force, and I was actually really looking forward to this episode because, as you guys know, while I thought a lot of last week's episode was very petty and just really unnecessarily forced conflicts, I was happy to see that we were getting back into Savitar. I thought they actually set up some pretty good stuff, and especially for this episode, I was definitely interested in seeing what this was going to be, because the way this episode was set up, once again, they kind of set up like it was going to be the Earth 2 episode, where we're going to get to see different counterparts of these characters and see what was going on there. And I mean, again, I've said before, the Earth 2 episode, the reason that works so well is because we got such a different glimpse into that world, and we were able to see these characters, you know, play a very different counterpart of themselves and play a very different side and things like that. I mean, it was just a really fun, insightful episode. It's one of the best episodes the show's done. I've said it so many times, and I thought this was going to be like that. And once again, I was a little bit disappointed. I didn't think this episode was bad. Actually, this was a really good episode. Definitely one of the stronger ones of this season. But compared to the Earth 2 episode, I mean, again, this doesn't hold a, you know, the Earth 2 episode doesn't hold a candle to this, honestly. I mean, it really does not hold a candle to the Earth 2 episode. The Earth 2 episode is so much better. This episode was good, but it was very formulaic, and it had probably the most repetitive message of this entire show, which is that Barry can't save everyone, which, by now, this is something that Barry should know. And, you know, I was definitely a little bit disappointed with the way this episode wrapped up, but let's just get into this episode, because I definitely do want to talk about it. So we start with Barry. He's standing in the Cortex, and he's blaming himself for Wally being trapped in the Speed Force. He tells Cisco to get to the breach room ready because he's going to save Wally by going into the Speed Force. And Joe wonders how Barry's going to find Wally in the Infinite Void, and HR asks why they can't use their knowledge to fashion a safety device for Barry, because, you know, that'd be the safe thing to do, but Barry doesn't believe in safe stuff, and Cisco realizes that he has a good idea, and the others agree as well. So Jessie insists that she's going in with Barry, and HR warns that Harry won't be happy with them if they let her go in, and Barry then asks her to keep Central City safe while he's gone. So Jessie reluctantly agrees. Barry talks to Iris privately. He promises they'll find Wally and bring him back, and notices she's not wearing his engagement ring, and Barry asks if he lost to her, and Iris walks away without responding. So things are really not great with them, needless to say, but luckily that's kind of put in the back burner until the end of the episode. So Joe comes out, tells Barry that it's a perfect time for him to explain what's going on between Barry and Iris, and Barry admits that Iris called off the wedding. So obviously Joe's not too happy about that, but Cisco, Caitlin, and Julian make a tracking device for Barry in the Speed Force. They explain to Julian that they have a device that will alert Cisco if Barry's ready to come back, and he'll open a breach to bring him back. They give a device to Barry, and Cisco warns Joe that he has no idea where Barry will land in the Speed Force, and they also don't really know what that's going to entail. So Barry and Joe hug. Barry promises they'll do whatever it takes to find Wally. Iris kisses Barry on the cheek and thanks him. Barry says that he loves her, and after a moment she says she loves him and steps back, and he then goes into the Speed Force. So, after Cisco vibes Barry in the Speed Force, he lets him go, which I was quite surprised by. I thought this was going to be one of those, you know, Cisco-Barry episodes, but that's not the case. Cisco stays back for the majority of it, and Barry is on his own in the swirling void. He finds himself in his lab on the night of the particle accelerator explosion, and Barry makes his way downstairs. He hears someone moving, and we see that Eddie is waiting, which it was pretty cool to see Eddie again. But they didn't really have much of a purpose to be here, other than, oh, look, it's this character from Season 1, or, oh, look, it's this character we haven't seen in so long. It didn't really feel like the show was trying to do anything here. It just kind of felt like they were trying to make callbacks to the show. And sure, I like seeing Eddie. I like seeing these characters, don't get me wrong, but I really feel that you just literally could have picked any character that's been in this show before and just put them in these roles. And it just didn't really seem like they need to be here. But he asks where he came back. Barry says that he came there to save Wally, and that's his fault that he's trapped there. The Speed Force embodiment says that Wally's a prison that Barry's future self created, and warns that things have changed. And they gave Barry his speed back because he said he'd come to terms with his mother's death, but he went back in time and saved her, creating Flashpoint. So they know and understand and let Barry save Henry. However, they can't let Barry make any more choices like that. So now both Barry and Wally will have to live with their choices. So you do get the sense that Barry probably isn't going to be able to go back and save his mother, which thank God of that, because I'm tired of seeing him trying to go back and save Nora. We get it, you want to save your mother. It's just there's only so much you can do with that. But Barry says he isn't leaving until he finds Wally. Eddie tells him to prepare to save an eternity there, and basically, you know, they're trying to tell him that he shouldn't save that he might not be able to save Wally. So Jessie visits Cisco, asks him if he could use the shard that Savitar left in Barry to find the evil speedster. Cisco figures that he could and wonders what Jessie will do if they find Savitar. She says she's just going to defeat him. Now, you know that's obviously not going to happen. Savitar is the threat of the season. You know he's not going to get out that easily. But she warns Cisco that they all know is that Savitar is in the real world and that they have to send him back to his prison. And obviously, he wants to, as we know, turn Central City into what he turned Earth 3 into. So Cisco refused to help her while HR listens from the hallway. Joe then finds Iris in Wells' vault looking at a future newspaper story that once had her name on it, and he points out that 2024 is a long time away, and things could still change. She might not necessarily die, and his daughter wonders if it's too late. Joe asks if Iris having second thoughts. She worries that she's making the wrong decision, and he tells her that Barry would have gone to save Wally no matter what she did, and Iris agrees. And yeah, I mean, they know that. They know that obviously he would in fact try to save Wally. That's something that Barry promised him from the beginning. But Joe says that she should look deep into her heart and she'll find the answer that she's looking for. And again, they know that obviously he would have gone to save Wally. So in the Speed Force, Eddie tells Barry that Eddie would have married Iris until Barry changed things. Then he shot himself and his death is his legacy. So Eddie asks there if there's any other reason then he came there to save Wally. And Barry insists that that's all, that there's no other reason. And the doppelganger tells Barry that to save Wally, he'll have to go through the elevator doors. And after outrunning a time wraith, Hunter Zolomon, the wraith emerges from the elevator. He chases after Barry, who evades it. He gets into the elevator. The doors close just in time. The elevator takes Barry into Star Labs, and he hears a baby crying in the distance. Following the cries, he finds Caitlin in the Cortex holding the baby and saying to him, and we see that Ronnie appears. So this is what would have happened if Ronnie would have lived, and he says that the baby is Caitlin's and tells Barry that they have to talk. So once again, it was cool to see Ronnie. I really do like Robbie Amell. It's cool to see him on the show. But again, just didn't really serve much of a purpose on this episode other than just reminding Barry of something else he's done. And if I recall, that really was not Barry's fault. Ronnie just died in the mission. Like, that wasn't at all something that Barry should take the blame for. So I didn't really understand that. But basically, Julie and Cisco examine the metal from Savitar's armor. Caitlin points out it is made of the same material as the Stones box. And as he rambles on about Peanuts and Schrodinger's cat. Jessie irritably asks if they can use the shard to track Savitar. Caitlin then explains the metal is in a constant state of eternal molecule flux, and Jessie figures that it's trying to reconnect with the rest of Savitar's armor, so Cisco figures the shard can lead them to Savitar, and Jessie's ready to go, but HR tells her that her attitude is the same attitude that got Wally trapped, and obviously, that's not a good idea, because if this got Wally trapped, then how is this going to help her? It's obviously not a good situation. So the others agree, and HR says that they'll find Savitar when the real Flash gets back, and they're just going to have to wait till then. Now, I actually do like that HR's being somewhat logical here. HR has had a lot of outlandish ideas, but this episode he actually was probably one of the more logical thinkers, and I like seeing that. I thought that definitely, was good to see, that he actually does know what to do, but Jessie takes offense, walks out. HR goes after her. She tells him to leave her alone. He figures that she wants to get playback on Savitar, and Jessie insists on her Earth, she's the real Flash. That's who she is, and that she should be able to do this. So you can understand, this isn't something where, she wants to be like Barry. She essentially is Barry on her Earth. That's who she is. And HR asks if she's fought anything like Savitar. Jessie says that her and her father would do anything to save Savitar. She tells HR to stop being her father and walks off, because that's what he's being. He's trying to be like her father, and obviously it's not working. So Barry then figures that Ronnie and Caitlin should have had a baby together, and as Caitlin walks off, Ronnie says that the future doesn't always turn out the way that they intended to, and basically Barry figures that the Speed Force is showing him all the people who sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Ronnie tells him that their sacrifice were for Barry, just like Wally did. And when Barry says that he's there to take Wally's place, Ronnie tells him that they can't allow it because Wally isn't a hell of his own. It's not for Barry. So basically, Ronnie says that he should leave while he can, but Barry puts on his cowl and says that he's not leaving until he sets Wally free. And the next time where he flies in, slams into Flash. Flash speeds off through Star Labs and with the Wraith in pursuits, and he gets in the outside doors, but the Wraith then pulls him back, and Ronnie wakes up, says that they warned him. Flash says that he's right and never should have asked Wally to save Iris, and he begs for the chance to free Wally, and Ronnie says that Flash must free himself first, and he starts to transform into a Wraith, and he mutters that he loves Iris, then slams his fist into the Wraith. So, obviously, this is a very dangerous situation for him to be in. You don't really know what's going on here, but again, it felt less like we need to bring Ronnie back, and more of this is just another character that Barry has somehow caused the downfall of. Things could have changed completely if he didn't go into Flashpoint, and that, again, like, didn't really make sense to me. So in the real world, Cisco tells Eos that the tether is destroyed, he can't bring Barry or Wally back, and Barry then finds himself in a hospital, and he comes to a locked room. Wally's inside staring at his mother's empty bed, and Barry tries to go in, and we then see that Snart appears, which it was weird to see Len Snart, because we haven't seen Captain Cold in so long. But we do see him. He freezes the door handle. He's examining the shard when HR comes in, refuses to let her go, and he admits that he's not her father. So he warns her that she'll just get killed taking on Savitar by herself. And Jessie then punches him unconscious and runs off. But I mean, he's not wrong. Like, he actually is kind of telling the truth there, and she probably should listen to him. But basically, Snart explains that Wally is trapped in an endless temporal loop, reliving the single most painful moment of his life over and over again. Barry says that Wally doesn't deserve it. He's seen his future. Len tells him to change it, and Barry insists he has to take Wally's place because Wally is the only one who can save Iris, and the doppelganger points out that Barry keeps saying one thing and doing another, and explains that Barry was the one who inspired the real Len to sacrifice himself, and Barry says that he's no hero. Len asks if he's ready to give it all up. He aims his cold gun at him, and when Barry says he's done fighting, Len tells him that he isn't, and that's the problem. He moves him for the kill. Jay Garrick then appears and tells Barry that they're getting him out of the Speed Force, and just this whole thing, like I said, it didn't feel necessary. Like, we didn't need Len to come back. It was just like, oh, here's Len Snart. It didn't really feel like there was a reason for it, except another person that Barry caused the downfall of. But again, that wasn't because of Barry. That was way after Barry told him to do that. I mean, the reason that Len decided to sacrifice himself was through, you know, gaining confidence and over time realizing he didn't want to be a villain anymore. That wasn't just Barry. Barry was the first person who gave him an idea of not going in a villainous direction, but he did not tell him to sacrifice himself. The idea that that was his fault is complete bullshit, and I don't know why, again, they're blaming Barry for that. But Jessie hits the street, she tracks the shard to Savitar, it flies across the city, she follows it to Savitar, he says that she knew that she would come for him because he's already lived through everything that happens. Once again, Savitar is an absolute badass here. Jessie then throws a lightning bolt at him, but he shrugs it off, blasts her back. HR is monitoring her vitals and realizes that she's in battle, so Savitar pulls the shard to him and pulls Jessie along with it. She asks HR for help. HR figures that Savitar is vulnerable beneath the suit and tells Jessie to find a gap and go for it, and basically, Savitar ends up grabbing Jessie by the throat, says that he has plans for her in the future. She jams the shard into a gap in his armor's shoulder, and Savitar ends up running off. So once again, she couldn't beat Savitar as predicted. I didn't think she was going to be able to beat Savitar either, but that still was a pretty cool scene. I like the way that was done, and we now know that there definitely is some sort of intent for Savitar and Jessie in the future. We don't really know what that's about, but, you know, he says that he has plans for her, and we'll get more into that when we get to the end here. So Jay then helps Barry up, assures him that he's the real Jay and that he's not just some, you know, time wraith, and Cisco contact him after they lost contact with Barry and told him what happened. So Len blasts Jay, Barry speeds forward, uses Jay's helmet to deflect the next ice blast. The doppelganger says that they can't let Barry take Wally. Barry tells him to try and stop him. He vibrates through the ice on the door. He and Jay then go in. Barry finally gets Wally's attention and tells him it's over and he's free. And as Wally walks out, Jay tells Barry that it's where he stays for a while. He says that they both know a speedster needs to take Wally's place, and that's why he's there. Jay is then repaying Barry for freeing him from Zoom and tells him to stop Savitar by being Flash. He then gives Barry his helmet, says that Cisco said Barry could use it to get back home. Barry promises to come back and free Jay. Jay says that he'll see him soon, and with that, Barry then walks out, and the door closes behind him, and he's able to get out of the Speed Force. So it seems that he's able to free Wally, which I was just a bit disappointed with. I wanted to see Wally suffer just a bit more. I thought it'd be an interesting storyline for him, but no, the show decides to get Barry to free him. But in the breach room, Cisco managed to pull Barry and Wally back through the breach. Barry then explains that Jay stayed back to save Wally, and Caitlin, and Caitlin takes Wally to check him, and Joe then hugs Barry, thanks him for bringing Wally back. Iris then hugs Barry, says that she thought she lost him, and Barry assures her that he's right there. It's a nice scene. I like seeing Wally be free, but again, it just fell a little bit short. Like, I just felt he could have suffered just a bit more, in my opinion. So later, Barry tells the team what happened. The doppelgangers told him that it's his responsibility to save Savitar. Barry says that they'll beat Savitar and get Jay out, and he warns that what Wally saw will haunt him for a while, and until Wally gets over it, Kid Flash, unfortunately, will have to take a break. So, basically, Kid Flash is going to have to sit out for a little bit, and Jessie then finds Wally in the speed lab, asks if he's okay. She says she was doing the same thing Wally was when he went after Savitar on his own. Jessie tells Wally that she's going to Earth 3 so that Savitar can't use her in his future plans, and that Earth needs a speedster while Jay is trapped, and she and Wally then kiss. Now, I would have been upset about this, but honestly, the show, I don't really think put Jessie to good use, until this episode, really. She hasn't really had much to do. She's felt very much like an afterthought. I've been into the Wally and Jessie relationship to an extent, but I do feel it's been a bit heavy-handed, but I like Jessie as an actress. I really think the actress who plays her is very good. I think that she definitely does a very good job, but there is a reason why. I mean, she definitely does have a point that she does need to find a way to protect Jay, obviously, because Jay is trapped. Someone needs her to do that, and I like that she is going back to Earth 3. So she says goodbye to the others. She apologized to HR for punching him, thanks him for being a friend. They hug, and then Wally promises Wally that she'll see him again. And Cisco then opens the breach. Jessie goes through. HR explains about Savitar's weakness and that he's no god. That they actually do see that he does seem to have some sort of weakness. You know, he's not completely powerful. They can find a way to beat him, and I like the way that we are starting to get a bit optimistic here. But now let's get to the ending, because I really was not a fan of this ending. It seems that every week they're ending with, with Barry and Iris, and Barry goes back to the apartment. He finds Iris there. She thanks him again for saving Wally, and Barry says that he's lived with death and tragedy in his life. He was consumed by trying to save Iris, and Iris says she wondered if Barry proposed her out of love or was it responsibility. And once again, I'm like, obviously he loved you. I mean, he wouldn't have done it if, just be happy. And she explains that while Barry was gone, she realized that she wants to be his wife, and relieved, Barry says that he loves her, but he does admit that he proposed because he thought it would save her, and that's the only reason why he did it. And Barry plans to save her in the future by embracing it, and Iris wonders what that means, and Barry tells her that they need some space for a while, and that they need to, be apart, and crying, Iris agrees. Barry says he'll stay with Cisco, and they basically are going to go on a break, and that is the way this episode ends. But let's just get into this episode and where I think we're going to go from here. So overall, guys, as I say every week, this wasn't at all a bad episode. I just felt that, just like almost every episode this season, it was an episode full of missed opportunities, and I really did feel that they could have done more with this concept. First of all, this definitely seemed like something that could have lasted more than one episode, with Barry venturing into the Speed Force and things like that. But it also seemed like something that didn't need to happen immediately. Why did we immediately need to save Wally? I mean, again, how'd you know what Savitar was going to do? I mean, I get it that obviously he was decaying from the thing, but we don't even know what Wally was going through, honestly. Like, I care more about what happened with Wally, but Barry says you'll never forget what you saw. We don't know what Wally went through. We don't know what Savitar did to him. That's the problem with this, is that we have no idea what Wally went through, and frankly, I don't think he suffered enough. I really don't. The show set up last week that he probably was going to become Savitar, and now that doesn't seem like that's the case at all. So I don't really know where we're going now. I don't really know what's going to happen from here on out. And just at this point, I'm very confused of where the show really wants to go, because on one hand, it seems like, oh, he is going to try to be Savitar, and maybe they are going to try to, they are going to try to save him and everything, but on the other hand, now it's like, how can he become Savitar, because he's not in the Speed Force? So I don't really know where the show is going with that. That very much did confuse me, and the whole thing with the Speed Force, it's a cool idea to have all of these ghosts of Barry's past, but it just didn't seem very necessary, that they really needed to be there. It just kind of seemed like they were there, just so Barry could, if they were basically just there, just so Barry could, deal with stuff that really was not his fault. I mean, I'm pretty sure Ronnie dying was definitely not his fault. Eddie sacrificing himself was totally on his behalf. Barry did not tell him he needed to do that. So I don't know why Eddie was getting all, I don't know why Barry was blaming himself for that. And then especially Len Snart, that was until the end of season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow. What does any of it have to do with Barry? None of it. Absolutely none of it. And that's what made no sense to me. Nothing here actually felt like it made sense to, it actually had to do, it actually was Barry's fault. None of it felt that way. And I just didn't feel like it was that necessary for that sort of thing to happen. The Speed Force in general, they could have done a lot with it. It could have been a really cool concept, but they just didn't do enough, in my opinion, for me to really get into the whole idea of the Speed Force. But I definitely do have to say that the most disappointing thing about this episode, not just was the Speed Force, but also was Jessie. I mean, they had a real opportunity by keeping Jessie, with the team. I think she works very well. She could be Jessie Quick. And it was cool what they did with her, but now she has to go back to Earth 3, and I'm fine with that. They never really used her that well, with her in HR and her and Wally. They just didn't do enough with her, in my opinion. I wasn't really satisfied by her leaving. I get why she has to leave, because she has to protect Jay, which I'm fine with, but I just felt they could have done a lot more with that, at least. I don't really think they needed to, if she would just listen to HR, I think things would have been different. We wouldn't have gotten that awesome Savitar moment, but at the same time, I don't think that it would have exactly gone the way that it did with Jessie, so I don't really know what's going to happen there. And as far as Iris, I think Barry did make the right decision by keeping Iris out of it. I think definitely, staying away from Iris for a little bit is probably the best thing for them. I think definitely she needs space. I think he needs space as well, so it probably was a good thing in hindsight, but either way, guys, I did enjoy this episode. I'm interested in seeing, really where the show is going to go from here, because now I have no idea what's going to happen. Now that Wally's gone, I have no idea who Savitar is. I really hope it's not Julian. It's going to be very disappointing if the show loves to take the love interest of Caitlyn and make that the villain, and I really hope they don't do that this season. It's going to be extremely predictable if they do. But overall, guys, I did enjoy this episode. I thought it was a fun episode overall. I thought there definitely was some interesting stuff in here. It was cool to see the guest appearances again, from Robbie and Mel, and from Robbie and Mel, and from, the other characters that were here. It was cool to see them one more time. But they just didn't really amount to anything, in my opinion. I really feel they could have used any other character in place of them. And I am going to give The Flash Season 3, Episode 16, Into the Speed Force, a 3.5 out of 5 or a B. So over, guys, for me, this episode of The Flash. I'm going to guys saw this episode. I'm actually really looking forward next week. Next week is the musical crossover, and I'm really looking forward to that change in pace that we're hopefully going to get. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the Americans, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.